Sorry about that. And just for those people who are joining late, I put the slide deck and the sign-in back into the chat for us. But we were talking about how we define digital citizenship, why we need it. We're getting right here. Students have more access than ever at home and at school, but they are not always aware of the long-term consequences and ramifications of what they're doing online. Here's a slide I like to show to parents to kind of get them brains wrapped around. Technology is not a fad. It's not something that's like, oh, like we're using technology for this next 3 years, and then 3 years after that, we'll be using something else because we're not paying attention to different things. It is such a pervasive part of our lives. This is a slide that's showing not just every day, but every minute of the day. So Twitch users view 1 million videos every single minute of the day. Almost 400,000 apps are downloaded every single minute of the day. Uber users take almost 10,000 rides every single minute of the day. There was a study that was put out a few years ago that said within the next 3 to 5 years, there will not be a single job out there where you do not have to interface with technology in some form or another. So whether it's delivering packages or flipping burgers, two things way up there, technology is going to be a part of our students' lives. And that's really just like on the business economical side of things. We know that they're using it socially and for other reasons as well. So we want to get them as prepared as possible to navigate these digital spaces, to figure out what the digital landscape holds for them and some of the pitfalls that they might encounter and how they can best approach them. To bring it back to SFUSD, here's our mission statement. Check out that second paragraph where it talks about maintaining the safety and security of our students. So making sure that they're not putting out any personally identifiable information, make sure we as teachers, if we are sharing documents with other people, that those don't include any personally identifiable information about our students as we share them around. So here's the meaty part of it. How can we teach digital agency? There are 6 topics to go underneath. Digital agency is a very large umbrella. They incorporate media balance and well-being. So thinking about like how much time you are spending on a particular device and how you're balancing that with doing some other things. Making sure that what you are seeing online and how you're internalizing it isn't causing you to go into a downward spiral, which is really, really easy for things to happen. There have been a lot of studies around social media and other technology use around students coming out recently, looking at their brain development. And we can actually see that like a lot of use for the normal student actually doesn't have a negative or positive impact. It actually slightly tends to lead towards the positive, just a little bit. But we do see a lot of that downward spiraling for people who are already having some mental health issues or are in a kind of like a bad place mentally or emotionally. That downward spiral can start picking up speed and really take them down. Let's move on to privacy and security. Like we were talking about, we want to make sure that our students' info and data is remaining safe. There is a difference between personal information and private information, and we really want students to understand the difference between those two and how they share that information. And lastly, we had some, next, digital footprint and identity. We have seen people lose their jobs over what is posted online. We've seen students have their admissions to colleges been rescinded because of what they put online. We want to make sure that students are putting their best selves out there. And we're talking not just refraining from putting anything damaging out there, but really putting some positive things out there online for college admissions officers or future employers to go ahead and check out. Relationships, communication. This is kind of like the heart for me about digital agency. Thinking about how we communicate with each other, making sure that we're being as clear as possible in our responses and what we put in our posts, and making sure that we're not having communication or relationships with people who are not too good for us. We talk a lot about like if you have that weird feeling in your stomach when you're talking with someone that you don't know online, really listen to that, follow up, get an adult's help to intervene and figure out what's going on with that situation. That 5th one is the hot topic one of cyberbullying, digital drama, and hate speech. To tell you the truth, out of all of these topics, it is the one that occurs the least frequently in terms of issues. But when they are issues, they are huge and horrendous and horrible. So we really want to make sure that we're still paying attention to that. It's definitely a hot topic one because it gets a lot of notice in the media and parents are really worried about it because when it goes wrong, it really does go wrong. So we want to make sure that our students are understanding, because they probably won't encounter a lot of cyberbullying directed at them, but they will definitely encounter a lot that they're seeing directed at other people. So I want to make sure that they know how to be an upstander and not just a bystander, not just watching things happen online and not intervening, but really upstander and standing up for those people who might be getting picked on. And that last but not least one, news and media literacy. It is kind of like the redheaded stepchild of digital agency. It doesn't get a whole lot of credit, but I think it's incredibly important. The media literacy part, especially since 2016, we've seen a lot of disinformation out there. So we want to make sure that our students are understanding how to distinguish between credible information, disingenuous information, those different clues to look for as they're finding information online. This also incorporates things like copyright and creative credit. So if your students are like pulling pictures to put into their report or quoting somebody, making sure that they are doing that accurately and not just stealing somebody else's work. All right, I'm gonna invite you, we're gonna take some time to take a look through some of these things. First up, we have Common Sense Education's full curriculum. I've done a lot of digital agency work for the last like 5-6 years now. I will start to sound like a shill for Common Sense, but they make the best stuff out there. There's a lot of things that we use to kind of like supplement what they have, to take a different look and different approach with different students. But their content and their activities and their lessons are really top notch. They're being constantly updated almost like every single day. So yeah, that is the base of what we use to teach digital agency. I'm gonna show you a little bit about how we work those. You guys in the VILS program have a very special pacing guide that Michael Blomsma has shared. If you want to click right in there, and actually I should put some links into this chat about what we're talking about in just a second. So we have, again, those 6 topics. They're asking for each grade level to teach those, give some parent resources for all those things. That scope and sequence, sorry, yes, the scope and sequence that is linked right at the top of the page. I'm actually gonna give people, let's say about 3 minutes to go ahead and check out that document right there. Oh, thank you for throwing that in the chat. I was about to start doing some of that as well. But yeah, let's take about 3 minutes to go ahead and check out your scope and sequence, see what it says for you. And then when we come back, I'll show you some other resources that we have that will help you teach some of these things. Let's take 3 minutes to go ahead and check out your scope and sequence. Take just about 1 more minute and then we'll come back and talk about how I can help support you put these through to your students. All right, just want to bring you guys back together. Oops, God. There you go. So yes, you guys, because you are a one-to-one school, your scope and sequence is a little bit deeper than pretty much any other school. However, we are trying to get all the other schools like caught up because pretty much everybody's using a device at this point. So I want to bring your attention to, oops, going too far. We have some getting started guides. This is what we're passing out to all of the district. It's our recommendations of how to tackle the first 30 days of instruction. So you guys have like your scope and sequence built out. This will give you some synchronous and asynchronous ways to share this information with your students. So let's say I'm just going to jump ahead to some previews of the 6-8 guide, and I'll throw that in the chat. But the idea is that for the first 30 days of instruction, you are framing some of these topics with some synchronous discussions. You are giving some of the asynchronous materials for students to do on their own independently. And then you guys will come back together and host another quick, not quick, but another discussion with students about what was coming up for them. Once the first 30 days are over, we would love for you guys to participate in some sort of class culminating project showing what the class has learned about some things. We have some suggestions for these coming, but like it could be anything from like a classroom poster or a shared Google Doc, talking about some of the quotes that come up from students, some of the ideas that they have now developed since looking at some of these digital agency topics, but just something that sort of shows what your students are thinking about and reflecting around digital agency topics. October is Digital Agency Week. It's a national celebration. So we'd like to do some celebrating during then about some of the work that you've done over the first 30 days. And then throughout the school year, asking that you guys pick out some of those digital agency topics that you feel are most pertinent for your school community, for your class community, and to touch base on some of those again, to come back to them, talk about what is still coming for people, has anything new that they've encountered while they've been in these virtual environments, just trying to follow it up throughout the entire year. So here's the overview. I will show you an example of what some of those asynchronous materials look like in just a second. But you'll review those ready-made content. We have some Bitmoji digital slides for you guys to pass out to students. You can customize them if you want to. If not, you can still just pass them out in straight in presentation view just as is. But if you'd like to like add your own Bitmoji or add some other links for students in there, feel free to take the template version. It'll make a copy for you. And you can adjust them as you need. And then come back, as we were saying, to those synchronous discussions with your class after you've given them the asynchronous work to do on their own. But I do want to show you, here's what's going to look like at the bottom of the guide, where you have the template version where you can make a copy and manipulate it, or you have the preview link where you can send it straight out to students and they can take it as is. But here's an example that I want to show you. This is the 6-8 asynchronous material around relationships communication. This is in preview mode, so like you can go ahead and click on some of those pieces. There's videos embedded right in there. It's not taking them out anywhere to like YouTube. It's embedded right in the slide. There are some other like links to articles, and there are some links to forced copy documents for students, asking them some very quick reflection questions. What did you learn? What do you still have questions about? They're pretty quick, easy, and simple. And it's a forced copy for a student, so they get a copy of it and then they can share it with their teacher, however the classroom is set up, either back through Google Classroom, or they can just straight like email to their teacher or click share right at the top and share it with their teacher that way. I do want to give people a few minutes to kind of check out these guides and play around with some of the asynchronous materials. I'm going to say let's take about 4 minutes to do that, and we'll come on back for just some thoughts, ideas, opinions. If you'd like to do that during the 4 minutes, if you want to just put into the chat some of the things that you're seeing that you think are going to be worthwhile, some questions that you might have about these materials, go ahead and put it in the chat, and then we'll talk about it as a whole group in about 4 minutes. Take just about 1 more minute to look through the guide and some of the asynchronous slides, and then either put some comments or questions in the chat, or in a minute, you can feel free to unmute. All right. I do want to open up if people want to share some things that they feel like are going to be working or not working, or questions that they might have about any of these materials. I see from Andrew, is this used with homeroom classes? Excuse me. We would actually like these spread out as much as possible around different content areas. So it definitely makes sense to have some going into advisory, but we don't want students to feel like it is just living there. We want them to know that digital agency is really spread throughout each content area. Actually, coming up, I have some resources about how to integrate some of these digital agency pieces into your specific content area. But yeah, I would talk with your admin about a plan for who is going to do which piece. I know that it's going to vary school by school, but we want to make sure that it's not just being held by like one person or one group, that it's really pervasive throughout the school. Who's responsible for school sites to ensure that these get done? Again, your admin will probably pick out some point people. If you have a Vils coach or a D leaf at your school, most likely they will be sort of the point person. But again, they're not the one who is doing all of these lessons for all of the students. We want to make sure that it's getting spread out through all classroom teachers. And yes, I should add this. If you guys want some help with some like models of implementation, we have some of those. So if you and your admin are completely at a loss of like, oh, we don't know what to do. Yeah, we have some models that you can emulate or take pieces of. But yeah, feel free to reach out to any of us if you guys are having issues with what it might look like at your school site. Yes, librarians are a huge fan of digital agency, especially that last piece with the news media information literacy. Yes, they love putting out some of these lessons, having these discussions. However, we have seen at other sites where it's only librarian who is doing all these lessons, and we just want to again make sure that students understand digital agency does not just live in one place, but it does have through lines through all of what they're doing. Just in the interest of time, because I don't need to take up this entire oh, thank you. Multilingual resources. Yes, we are working on getting these things translated. The translation department is completely overwhelmed, but we are trying to work with some other teachers and family members to get these translated. Also, Common Sense, I believe, is taking a fair share of getting these at least into Spanish. But we are looking to see how we can get them translated into other languages as well. Sharon, I know it's the first 20, 30 days of schools. Yeah, so this is kind of like the foundational piece that we're trying to put in for the first 30 days of instruction. So this is kind of like, touching on each of these topics, introducing it to the students, having them have a understanding of what each of these 6 topics means, but then, yes, touching base throughout the year. One of the complaints that we got from Vils students in previous years around digital citizenship and digital agency was that there was a lot of front loading going on before they got their device, and then it was completely ignored for the rest of the year. They would get like a lot of the same like repeat lessons for the first like few weeks of school, and then nobody in the school community talked about any of the topics for the rest of the school year. So we're trying to change that up of giving this foundation, but also making sure that you are still touching base on each of these topics throughout the year. Not saying that you need to touch on all 6 of them, but I bet you there'll be 3, if not 4, that do end up being sort of pervasive issues for your class. So you can focus on some of those. Yes, we are working with SF Ed Fund as well. Yeah, we're trying to cover all of our bases to get all of these things translated as much as we can. And we will get them pushed out as much as we can as well. I do appreciate all these questions, and this is fantastic. Feel free to keep throwing them in the chat. I will come back and take a look, but I wanted to press on with some other resources that we have for you guys. Here's the 912 overview, which you guys don't need at all. But here's what I was talking about before, some integration ideas. They're listed by content areas, and they ran from like science to social studies all the way to PE and various other arts and things like that as well. But just think about like some of these specific talking points and how they do pertain to your particular content area. So you can go ahead and click on that. I'll throw the link into the chat as well. To let you know, outside of the lessons and activities that Common Sense offers, they have what they call digital dilemmas. And they're like paragraph long little scenarios, little vignettes. They do a pretty good job encapsulating what a lot of our students might encounter or witness or hear about in the digital world that might be problematic. And it ranges from sexting to inappropriate communication to, there's a great one that I like where a friend posts a picture of another friend that doesn't paint them in the most flattering light and was asking them to take it down, and there's some back and forth about that. But yeah, I've some of us are a little too old to have dealt with many of these issues, but our students definitely are not. When I was showing some of these to our newer teachers at NTO last week, pretty much, yeah, there seems to be a fairly nice divide. Everyone under the age of 30 had dealt with almost every single issue that had brought up in these digital dilemmas. Want to bring your attention as well to the SEL toolkit. Social emotional learning and digital agency really do go like hand in hand. There's so many topics that just match up, particularly because like what I was saying at the beginning, digital agency is about how you treat other people and treat them well. Same thing for SEL. SEL is in person. Digital agency is through use of technology. But a lot of those ideas and concepts and topics really are the same and match up. Some other resources to get your site certified. What do I mean by that? The SFUSD has an expectation for each school site to get digital agency, digital citizenship certification through Common Sense, getting recognized through them of doing some foundational and ongoing work. So what we're asking for to get your certification this year, you're going to set that foundation during the first 30 days of instruction, like you've seen in the VIL scope and sequence, and also the 6-8 guide that we've put on here already. We're asking that you follow up on at least 3 topics throughout the year, so touching base on 3 of those 6 topics. And then you perform some sort of community outreach. In years previous, this could have been a live event or virtual. We are pretty much sticking with virtual at this point. But the idea is that you're getting some of these digital agency ideas and topics out there to your families and larger community. So this could happen like through like your school website or passing out some best tips and practices sheets through email to your families. Lots of different ways to get that information out there. We just want to make sure that it is getting out there for our school community. As a bonus, you can get Google Sites turned on for your class if you have that set that foundational level for digital agency. So if you want your students to be able to post some of their work on a Google site, have it shared publicly, we think that is fantastic. We just want to make sure that your students are really aware about those particular topics: digital footprint, cyberbullying, and creative credit and copyright. Those are also the main 3 things that seem to go wrong when you're putting things out there publicly for to be published. So yes, if you set that foundational level and you get your principal to sign off, we can get Google Sites turned on for your class. Going back to those community outreach, part of this of the certification, just some ideas of what you can do. Common Sense offers a digital life survey for your families, talking about like when and where and how they use some of the devices in their homes, and just to become a little bit more thoughtful and mindful about that. You can host a parent conversation like on Zoom or Meet for your school community. Send out some regular tips I know that a lot of, especially the 6-8 schools are talking about, hey, if we're doing these 6 topics during the first 30 days, maybe we spend the next 6 months after that and do a different topic like each month. And then they can easily send out, everyone's on the same page for which topic it is, send out information that way, make it a little bit more uniform and easy. Lots of parent resources also from Common Sense, easy to pass out. And there are a couple of games. Actually, Digital Passport is really recommended more for K-5, but the Digital Compass game for 6-8 is pretty cool. For those of you who've never played before, it's like a role-playing game. You get to pick a character and you walk through their day, and different sort of issues around digital agency pop up, and students get to pick which path they're gonna go to. It's like a choose your own adventure. I personally was playing it wrong the first time I did. I tried to make all the good decisions, and I was like, yay, I win. But someone pointed out that maybe you should try making the wrong decisions and see what those consequences are in this very safe sandbox that is this game of Digital Compass. So yeah, if you are giving that out to your students, I would suggest having them make some of the wrong decisions and see what happens in that game, because it's not like they're gonna get any real life consequences from it. We have a digital citizenship website, which since we've converted to a digital agency and have all these brand new resources for you, has not been updated. But there still are some fantastic things on there. Administrator resources, advocate resources, family resources, and some things to go with your digital citizenship, digital agency week coming up in October. We will be revamping that, but in the meantime, the things that are on there are still pretty good to use. Some things that are not common sense that you might use to supplement or support what you're using there. First comes from I Can Help, a fantastic organization based out of Davis, Sacramento area. I really like the I Can Help stuff because Common Sense has some great in-class activities really set to be 5 or 45 minutes long, somewhere in that range. I Can Help kind of plays with the opposite ends of those, either quick 1-2 minute activities or some themes and topics that might last for an entire month at your school site. So I kind of like how it bridges that gap of we're not just doing this right here, right now, but this is something that we can either do quickly all the time or something that we can extend throughout the entire month. Some other things that you might want to check out, the Stanford History Education Group, they came up with a study, oh man, it's gotta be about 3 years ago at this point, but they had some really cool activities on there that they gave out to about 10,000 middle school and high school students. You see the one here on the left side shows a front page to slate.com and asked students to identify, is this an ad or an article? And to ask them to tell them why. Just for this one, they would get 1 point if they can correctly identify the ad or the article, and they would get another point if they could tell why, how they knew that it was an ad or an article. Out of all the 10,000 plus students that they surveyed, 2 points for both of those things would get you a mastery level. Anyone want to guess what percentage of students attain that mastery level out of that 10,000 group? It was about 12%. I think the end of the study said that, yes, the media literacy for middle and high school students right now was abysmal, I think was the word that they used. On the right, we have another one about some media literacy. It shows a picture of this kind of mutated flower, and it asks, says that it was posted by the Fukushima nuclear power plant in Japan. But it talks, asks students to identify, how can you tell if this is a credible image or not? So yeah, it's a really interesting read to just check out the study, but they also offer all of these activities for your students to participate in as well. We've got some documentaries for you. Screenagers, we also have Screenagers 2, which I'm glad to say actually focuses a lot more on SEL than it does around technology use. I'm talking about both, but it really has more of an SEL focus, which we think is fantastic. Screenagers is totally appropriate for the middle school level. But what I have on the right there, Audrey and Daisy, I would caution against it. I think it's something important for teachers to be aware of. It mainly deals with cyberbullying and how it has impacts in the real world, physically, emotionally, and mentally. However, the topic is a little heavy for most 6th, 7th, 8th graders, but it's important for you guys to check out. And if you feel like it is appropriate for your group of students, we can make some arrangements to have it shown for your class. On the digital website, DigCit website, and also right here linked into the slides, a bunch of infographics and posters. Posters probably won't do you too much good in this environment, but maybe some of the infographics can find a place to live in your digital environments. Just things to kind of keep the ideas of digital citizenship, digital agency going, even though you're not talking about it immediately, but maybe just some things to keep it fresh in your students' minds. And a reminder that Digital Agency Week will be coming up in October. A lot of schools try to cram all of their digital agency lessons in at this time. I much prefer to use it as a place to celebrate what's going on at your school around digital agency. Get students to make some things that can be shared widely. And we have a lot of suggestions about how to do that, some more fun activities that are in there that are not necessarily common sense lessons, and some ways that you can get your students to put some creative pieces out there around digital agency. But that is about it for me. If you need any help, I'll have my contact slide on here, but technology help, IT support, that's where you're gonna go. I'm pretty sure you guys know that. If you'd like to sign up for the DOT's communication, the .com, you can go ahead and sign up and they'll get sent to you and you can stay on top of all the new movings and shakings that are going on in the DOT. And I also maybe put this pitch out there. I'm on the board of QSF, Computer Using Educator San Francisco. It's just a really fun place to meet some other educators or the people who work with education and technology, find out about some of the tools that are going there in a really fun, friendly, safe environment. So if you have any interest in building your capacity or knowledge around some of these digital tools, but want to do it with other people as they maybe drink on the other side of the screen, go ahead and sign up for the newsletter or check out some of our events there on the bit.ly. If you really like us, come join and be a member. But I'm gonna leave you with my contact info. Myself and my colleague Devora are sort of the head of digital agency for the district. So again, if you guys are having some issues with figuring out how to implement this at your school site, wanting to find out some other resources that you might need for your students, or having some issues coming up and you're not quite sure how to address them, please reach out to us. We definitely would love to help you on your digital agency journey and make sure that students are really getting all this pertinent information. But that is about it for me. I would like to open it up to any other questions, comments. I've got some things here in the chat, but if anybody wants to unmute or ask us anything, feel free to do that. Well, thank you. And Cynthia, I see your question on there, making a digital form. The problem with us making a form is that then we get the responses. And it's really also kind of hard to share and copy without inviting everyone to collaborate on that form. I would just suggest it's pretty easy to do a form, just copy the digital life survey over. But you know what? I'm gonna take a stab at it anyway, and see if I can come up with a form and figure out a way to easily transfer it out to you guys so that you guys are getting the responses from that form. But thanks for adding that there. Yeah, you can't really force copy a form. I don't know. I'm gonna look into it though. Yeah, digital life survey in form. Thanks for that. Okay, I'm sure that you guys had a ton of stuff to do today. I do not need to take up your time just sitting here. If you would like to stick around and ask some questions, that's totally fine, but I will not be offended if you take off to go set up and do some other things now. Thank you for joining. Again, please reach out if you guys are having any issues with these things. Feel free to take any of these slides that I've been presenting so that you can show it to the rest of your staff or your students. That should be fine to do. And have a fantastic start to your year. It's going to be very different. Oh, and yes, if I can say this, please call out your mistake. Anything that goes wrong with technology, I was having major issues with the Zoom thing right here. Please make your students a little more comfortable. Let them know that you are making these mistakes, that mistakes will be made. It's going to be frustrating and awkward for everybody. As much as you can call that out and model your thought process around it, the better off your students can be. But thank you again for joining us. Love to see you guys, and have a fantastic start to your year.